Hey there. Welcome to Immortal Unchained. I'm your pal C. Jacobs, and this is a game and a let's play that I think will vindicate me. Immortal Unchained is a game that recently came out, developed by Toadman Interactive, as you just saw, a third-person action RPG with a focus on ranged weapons instead of melee for once. It's very similar to a certain game that we shall not mention with the acronym D and S, but with a focus on crazy cyberpunk future technology instead. I'll explain what all of these classes and all of these stats do as we go a little bit further into the game, but we're going to be picking one that's, like a pretty middle ground class that can use a lot of weapons right off the bat. One that's focused on having the ability to wield pretty much whatever I pick up, just so that I can show off a good amount of weapons. This game has a really fascinating story, really interesting inspiration behind it in mythological happenings. I guess you could say mythological happenings. And it's got really good world building that, don't worry, we'll get very, very deep into over the course of the Let's Play. I'm designing my character to look like a crazy cyberpunk thing because it's cool. Gotta have that cyber war paint. And I'll see you on the other side when we've been unchained.
In an age long since forgotten, a prophecy once told that there would come a time when the sun would grow dark and cold. A bone-chilling wind would surge from the deepest pits of the abyss. And the dead would rise in its wake. Harbingers of destruction and despair. Left to its own, this wind would bring war. War that would ravage the 9 planets. Beasts would break their bonds and flood the soil with their poison. One by one, we would all wither away to nothingness, unless we were willing to make impossible choices. Warriors of legend would rise once again. Black of heart they would be. This is the day of prophecy. This is the end of times.
Well, that was certainly an outburst. Welcome We are immortal, and we've been unchained. Oh, well, we're not immortal yet, but we'll live up to the title soon. Right now, we're just a prisoner. And let's do what prisoners do and make a break for it at the first opportunity.
Quickly, go forth and find the Grand Hall.
You got it, buddy. Big place. Lots of room for storing bits and bytes. I mean prisoners, like me. So, the world of Immortal Unchained, as you are very quickly going to notice for the rest of this Let's Play, likes to pretend that the world is a computer. Computer terminology, computer tech, physical manifestations of computer concepts. I will spoil for you, I suppose, right now, as we dodge through these security lasers with our iframes, that, no, the twist isn't that this game takes place inside a computer. I thought it was, from all of the thematic stuff surrounding computer tech, but no, it's just a thematic choice in general. Which is interesting. Also an interesting decision. But hey, since this is a computer techie world, we have the ability to absorb bits and use these obelisks to attune them to our body. And also equip weapons. Very similar to another concept from a game that starts with D and ends with S. But don't worry about it. Don't think about it. The weapon equipment screen gives you a description of the weapon and the power attack, which we'll cover in a minute, along with most or all of the stats that the weapon has therein. I'm going to be pausing to read the weapon description so that you can get a better idea of the lore of the world and all that. I'm not going to be reading it out loud because the text is very tiny on my preview monitor. However, I give you appropriate time to read all of the text for the stuff we're picking up, don't worry. And if you don't like it, I'm going to be putting a little bar in the top edge of the screen that will count down to when we get back to gameplay. Just in case you want to watch me do stuff like that, instead of manage my inventory. Yes, Immortal Unchained is a third-person shooter instead of a third-person melee brawler, like most action RPGs generally are. And I feel like it's mostly successful. I feel like this game is really unique in its presentation. It's a third-person action RPG with a focus on guns is not something that I've really seen before. Some people compare this game to the likes of Too Human and similar cyber future action games. But I don't know. I feel like this game very quickly comes into its own, especially with the weird cyber Norse aesthetic it has going on. Don't worry, we'll get into the cyber Norse aesthetic. We have loads of time to talk about that. And speaking of things that we have loads of time to talk about, here comes the intricacies of the lock-on system, as we take on an enemy that's twice our height, not 5 minutes into the game. The lock-on in this game makes your character automatically circle around the enemy, and that's a good thing because you want to aim at their back, because enemies in this game, generally speaking, have glowing weak points on their back, rewarding you for locking on, dodging behind them, and using stuff like our special power attack here to stun him so he can't move. As far as I'm aware, this is the only weapon in the entire game that has that power because it's quite overpowered. But the gun itself is pretty wimpy, so outside of this intro area, it's not going to be super useful. So yes, welcome everybody to the prisons in the core. Our character has plot-designated amnesia from being kept in prison for so damn long. We don't know who they are, we don't know why they're here, but we know that they are really, really good with firearms and have been released by that guy to head to the Grand Hall. So maybe we'll get a better explanation there. Ho ho. Why, what have we here? There is at least one armor shrine in every area of the game, and armor shrines are different for each character class. Eventually, they all get the same upgrades, just spread around. However, they come in a different order based on the character archetype that the class is. The one we've chosen here is focused around, again, being able to generally use any weapon that I put in my hands, and we won't be able to do that for some time because we got a little bit of leveling up to do. But we picked up a primary, so let's head back to the obelisk and put it on. Sniper rifle type weapons are basically how sniper rifles operate in all video games. They do a lot of damage, but they fire very slowly, and they reload pretty slow to boot. For us, that's not so big a deal, because I'm using the mouse and keyboard to play this game, so I can take my time trying to get precision shots off. The reason that I decided to go with sniper rifles as my starting weapon is because later on in the game, they are quite overpowered, which we may see, I guess, if I decide to stick with them. However, it's mostly for pacing reasons, because a lot of the classes in this game start with a weapon that is basically equivalent to the pistol. Not many classes in this game start with a weapon that is better than this pistol that we're using right now. So I figured it would be good to show off the power difference between primaries and secondaries in this game. And of course, the sniper rifle is a big, beefy weapon. You move real slow while aiming it, but a headshot will take off a nice chunk of the enemy's health. Again, later on in the game, they become quite OP, with virtually no downsides, because you can do this. Just snipe enemies from so far off that you can barely even see them. If your crosshair turns red, you're aiming at them. But right now, they're just as powerful as any other primary. So Immortal Unchained is a sort of open game. I guess you could consider it that. It's got a critical main path, along with several side paths branching into dead ends in each of its levels, along with your standard open world RPG fare of loopbacks, interconnecting levels, and all of that stuff. Different paths between the worlds to the end goals. The end goals that right now we don't know, but soon we will know them. So, as you've just seen, this game has a limb dismemberment system where if you don't lock on, which is a bad idea, you shouldn't lock on unless you are close up to the enemy and trying to circle around to their back. If you don't lock on, you can shoot an enemy in the arms to shoot their arms off. You can shoot them in the legs to cripple them and make them fall over for a second. Or you can shoot them in the head to cause them to stumble backward and lose all of their stability. It's interesting because every enemy in this game has a different amount of stability before their limbs will start flying apart. Generally speaking, arms are the weakest. but we can talk about that on an enemy-by-enemy basis as we get there. But it's interesting because it allows you to make tactical decisions based on the types of enemies you're facing, and I really, really like it. We got an inventory in this game, but we're not gonna futz around with it too much just yet because we don't have much to look at. All of these items are pretty useful. Stuff that prevents certain types of damage, refills our power attack energy bar, gives us bits en masse, a cyanide pill in case we have no other way out, items that do tertiary things like increase the amount of bits we get from enemies or refill our ammo and all that stuff. And believe me, that inventory is going to become quite clogged as we go forward. What's this? With the help of Dakar engineers, the stasis chambers of the prison were constructed to withstand the challenge of powerful creatures. I see. So there's a ton of different ways to pick up the lore of this game. Each enemy type has a couple of little lore bit collectibles that they drop that get added to your inventory in a special tab. But there's also collectibles you can find on the ground, like those pillars of light and other such things. That'll tell you a little bit about the world, about the area you're currently in, generally speaking, or the characters that you interact with there. They're pretty candid about the lore and story of this game. The narrator in the lore bits has a very omniscient perspective, omniscient and unbiased, which I appreciate because it adds a lot of much needed clarity to the cube world that we have found ourselves in. Couple new weapons. Let's check them out. Specifically, a rapier, so we can hit stuff from close up if need be. You always got to have a backup if you have a sniper rifle. Not having a backup if you have a sniper rifle is what took out the End in Metal Gear Solid. The Ranger's pistol is quite useful for characters who want to start with, say, some of these stats like elemental weapon damage. We'll run through these pretty quick, but I'll explain them in depth once we actually start leveling them up. This character starts off with a pretty good spread. A pretty good spread of stats to use. Assault rifles, sniper rifles, weapons that require a little bit more, finesse and handling ability. But most important here are the stats down at the bottom. The bottom two, expertise and insight, govern your weapon damage scaling. Each of these stats that you're reading right here, that I have to talk over because this is the best opportunity that I'm going to get to explain them. Each of these stats has diminishing returns past 10 and like 25, I think. And expertise and insight both start at 10 or above for this character. So we're going to get some pretty good weapon damage all around without pumping any upgrades into our weapons. For now, though, we're going to be focusing on stats like finesse that allow me to do stuff like, wield more weapons. The whole goal of this character build. So as you just saw there, melee attacks in this game are relatively slow. You can't move during them, and they have a very long cooldown. That little two-hit combo that I did there is all you got. You can't do any more melee moves than that, outside of attacking a downed enemy, which has a special animation and more damage. The melee's not too bad in this game. It's alright. It's not the most powerful, but it's also not the worst. It's definitely a good backup in case an enemy really does get too close and you can't reload in time. or like dodge away. It's generally better to dodge away than to try and take a swing, because unless you get rid of the enemy's stamina with one hit, you're not going to stumble them. Like, enemies in this game don't stumble at all, ever, unless you either shoot them in the back or completely exhaust their stamina. So you gotta be kind of wary of that. But once you know that, it allows you to power game a little bit. Like, you can shoot away almost all of an enemy's stamina, then run up and hit them, which will exhaust the last little bits and knock them over. And again, it makes for a really interesting tactical decision, because you can decide the most efficient way to take out an enemy's stamina so they get stumbled, the way that allows you to hit them the best. Boy, it really seems like they want to keep people from escaping here. I hope these guys aren't the prison guards, because they're not doing a real good job, first of all. And second of all, they kind of seem like undead zombies. And I mean, I'm not prejudiced against undead zombies. A lot of the Let's Plays that I've done have included undead zombies. Never really ones that use guns, though. No, I take that back, actually. Dead Space 3 had zombies with guns, I guess. If you count the necromorphs that had, like, gribblies in their heads that were, like, unitology soldiers or whatever. That happened in Dead Space 3. But other than that, generally speaking, zombies with guns is not something you see very often. But here in Immortal Unchained, they do not shy away. Oh ho! I spy with my little eye a secret path. How about that? I missed. So the power attack with most sniper rifles is taking a precision shot that takes a while to charge up, but does a hell of a lot of damage if it hits an enemy in a crit spot. Since its discovery, the core has been expanded upon by the Prime. The prison complex in the lower levels houses the most dangerous criminals in the cosmos. Okay, so I guess we were a criminal of some kind. Again, this wouldn't be the first game I've Let's Played where you play as a criminal. I guess criminality just runs in my veins at this point. And hey, wouldn't be a game similar to D.S. If there weren't loopbacks back to obelisks. And I mean, I'm making these jokes, but the creators of Immortal Unchained actually wear the influence of that certain action RPG everyone knows on their sleeve. They're actually very candid about the inspiration behind it, which is refreshing. It's refreshing, unlike every other developer who makes a game similar to that unnamed video game but refuses to acknowledge it. We got grenades. Grenades are really good in the early game, but they kind of fall off later when enemies start getting more health. They do a flat amount of damage, regardless of the enemy's defense and all of that stuff, or their health values. So they fall off in effectiveness the tougher the enemies are. But they're really good for groups. And hey, this looks ominous and foreboding, so surely it can only be a good thing. Let's break out of this hellhole. Uh-oh. So this is the Housecarl Invader, the first and mandatory tutorial boss of Immortal Unchained. As you can see, he's very heavily armored from the front, and he's got a Gatling gun. So let's maybe shoot him in the back instead, where he takes like 80 times as much damage. It's kind of crazy. I feel like they overcorrected on that. This boss used to be harder, but in the first patch they made him a lot weaker because people were having trouble beating him. But boy, I feel like they overcorrected, because watch this. He kind of sucks. I'm sorry, House Carl Invader. You're not a very good tutorial boss. But you know what? He does teach you the mechanics of shooting the enemy in the back and waiting for an opportunity to exhaust their stamina. You can't try to out DPS that guy. He'll stun you to death. So in that way, I guess this boss is a success. And hey, look, he already got the door mostly pried open for us. So let's get out of here. Once more, unto the breach. Nice place you got here. I like your decorations. They're very rectangular. They're very computer science. Especially that big one there at the back. Looking very shiny and graphically intense. Hello there.
You live. There is yet a chance to reverse this. Do not be alarmed if you have no recollection. The detention affects the mind. As such, you stand within the Grand Hall, the only sanctuary remaining. But that too is in jeopardy. The undead are unrelenting. As the monolith weakens, so does our protective shield. We face a grave threat. You seem to be our last hope.
Well, great.
Before you stands the monolith, keeper of the cosmos, anchor of reality. I am its steward. We have much to discuss.
Okay.
Join with the monolith. Go and become one with it. Sadly, this is but a glimmer of what it once was. Yet it still has the power to bestow what it finds necessary. Soon to be reborn, if you do what is needed.
Well, I do like protecting the galaxy from existential threats. So, alright, Aris. I guess I'll touch your tree of life. How's it going, Monolith? I'm Cyber Jacobs.
It is said that in the beginning there was light, and the great monolith revealed itself. Born from this was the stream, flowing, binding, and creating the cosmos and all within it. Stars and planets formed, and life followed. This was the dawn of all races. But as the first children of the monolith explored the power of the stream, their worlds collided. Ultimately, one race would strive for power. They were the Prime, and the instigators of the Prime Azurian War. With their victory, the Prime claimed the core, and with it, the home of the monolith. It bestowed great power unto them, and gave them dominion over all life. Great cities were built. Technological advancements and trade allowed the worlds to flourish and bloom. And thus, the Golden Age began. This was the time of heroes, where legends were born and their stories told. And so it was for eons. But this was not to last. An evil is spreading through the cosmos. All is in jeopardy.
Well, that's a hell of a prophecy we just received. A lot of information to take in at once. It's a good thing I'm Cyber Jacobs. And thanks to the Monolith connection, we are now officially immortal. Thanks, Aris.
I'm grateful that the Monolith has accepted you. This is not something granted lightly, nor to many. It pains me to know it has been tainted. Yet this bond will grant you benefits. However, do not be surprised if your memory has not returned. It will in due time.
I'd certainly hope so.
The end nears. The light of many worlds is fading, and for some, the end has come. Necessity demands this. However, there is an evil that must be stopped. I am bound to this place. You, however, are free and unconstrained, able to venture forth.
I'm happy to hear that.
You linger. Bring forth your questions, should you have any.
We could just head out, but let's talk to Aris a little more while we're here.
The Grand Hall is the center from which all paths lead. The gateways before you lead to other worlds. Some have fallen dark, their destinies already determined. Ours, however, can and will be changed.
You're damn right.
You linger. The 9 realms wither. The undead are spreading everywhere, with nothing to oppose them. Before anything else can be done, this must be addressed. These portals are gateways to the realms. Do you understand? Your empty gaze gives me little confidence.
Well, listen, we just spent eons in jail, okay? I just gotta... just give me a couple episodes to get my wind, alright?
There are 3 Nexus orbs. They channel power to the monolith from the 9 realms. That power is being interrupted, and the monolith is becoming unstable. We can delay disaster by restoring the Nexus orbs. Go find them. Only then can I search for the source of this evil.
You got it. Let's go touch some orbs and save the world. I'll see you all next time when we head to the frozen wasteland and begin our journey. Hopefully we'll find some shoes. I hope you enjoy Immortal Unchained, because it's one of my favorite games to come out recently. And I hope I do it justice and show you why it's an underrated hit.